Welcome back to Unbox the Bible. Today we have 20 short paragraphs, each containing details of a biblical event, but in each is hidden an incorrect fact. Your job is to spot the error. Feel free to pause the video if you need more time. There's also a bonus question at the end for personal reflection. Are you ready? Let's go. Question 1. Noah, chosen by God to build an ark, gathered pairs of animals, clean and unclean, onto the ark before a great flood covered the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. After the flood, God made a covenant with Noah, symbolized by a rainbow in the sky. The answer is 40 days and 40 nights. Although it rained for this period of time, the earth remained flooded for longer. Question 2. Jacob, the son of Abraham, had 12 sons who became the founders of the 12 tribes of Israel. His favourite son, Joseph, was sold into slavery by his brothers and eventually became an important official in Egypt. Jacob was the grandson of Abraham and not his son. Jacob's father was Isaac and Isaac's father was Abraham. Question 3. Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt and, after crossing the Red Sea, they wandered in the wilderness for 40 days before entering the Promised Land. During this time, God gave Moses the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai. The wrong bit is 40 days. The Israelites wandered in the wilderness for 40 years before entering the Promised Land. Question 4. Ruth, a Moabite woman, married Boaz, a wealthy landowner from Bethlehem, and became the great-grandmother of King David. Ruth met Boaz whilst gleaning in a field that belonged to him. Ruth was actually David's great-great-grandmother and not his great-grandmother. Question 5. Gideon, a king of Israel, tested God's call with a fleece of wool that became wet with dew while the ground remained dry. After this confirmation, he then led a small army of 300 men to victory against the Midianites using trumpets and torches. Gideon was not a king of Israel. He was a judge and military leader who refused the offer to become king, insisting that the Lord would rule over Israel. Question 6. The prophet Samuel was born to Hannah and Elkanah in the town of Bethlehem. As a young boy, he was dedicated to serve in the tabernacle at Shiloh under the priest Eli, where he received his first prophetic call from God. Samuel was not born in Bethlehem, but in Ramah. Question 7. David, the shepherd boy who defeated Goliath, later became the king of Israel and wrote many of the Psalms. He reigned from Jerusalem and built the temple there during his lifetime. His son Solomon built the temple in Jerusalem and not King David. Question 8. In a famous incident, 2 women came before King Solomon, each claiming to be the mother of the same baby. To resolve the dispute, Solomon proposed drowning the child in the Nile, prompting the real mother to plead for the child's life, thus revealing her true love. King Solomon suggested cutting the child in half and not drowning them, which revealed the true identity of the mother. Question 9. Jonah was called by God to preach to the city of Nineveh. After initially fleeing towards Tarshish and being swallowed by a large fish or sea creature, he eventually reached Nineveh. He walked through the city for 7 days, proclaiming its impending destruction. Jonah walked through the city for 1 day and not 7 days, warning that Nineveh would be overthrown. Question 10. The prophet Jeremiah, known as the Weeping Prophet, lived during the reign of King David. He is thought to have written the Book of Lamentations, expressing sorrow over the destruction of Jerusalem. The call of Jeremiah happened during the reign of King Josiah. This happened around 400 years after King David was anointed king. Question 11. Daniel, a prophet in the Babylonian exile, was thrown into a fiery furnace for refusing to worship King Nebuchadnezzar's golden statue. He emerged unharmed after an angel appeared and protected him from the flames. It wasn't Daniel but his friends Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego who were thrown into the fiery furnace. Question 12. Daniel, the prophet in the Babylonian exile, interpreted a mysterious message that appeared on the wall during Belshazzar's feast. The message warned that the king would be struck with madness. The message wasn't about madness, but warned of the end of the king's reign and that the kingdom would be divided and given to the Medes and Persians. Question 13. Esther, a Jewish orphan raised by her uncle Haman, became queen of Persia after King Xerxes divorced his previous queen, Vashti. She later risked her life by approaching the king without being summoned to plead for the lives of her people. Esther's uncle was Mordecai. Haman was the enemy of Mordecai and the one behind the plot to eradicate the Jews. Question 14. Jesus was born in Bethlehem, and his birth was announced by an angel to some shepherds. Jesus was visited by the shepherds and later by 3 wise men. There were 3 gifts, but the number of wise men is not recorded in the Bible. Question 15. The disciple Peter was a fisherman from the town of Capernaum. He was known for his bold declarations of faith, such as walking on water and being the rock upon which Jesus would build his church. Peter was from the town of Bethsaida and not Capernaum. Question 16. In the parable of the prodigal son, a man had 3 sons, and the youngest son demanded his inheritance early. After squandering his wealth, he returned home, and his father welcomed him back with a great feast, angering the eldest brother. The man in the story only had 2 sons. Question 17. Jesus fed a crowd of 5,000 people with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, with 7 baskets of leftovers remaining. This miracle is recorded in all 4 Gospels, demonstrating Jesus' power over nature. There were 7 baskets left over after the feeding of the 4,000, but 12 baskets full after this miracle. Question 18. In the parable of the wise and foolish builders, Jesus likens those who hear and obey his words to a wise man who built his house on the rock. Those who don't hear his words are like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The foolish man hears Jesus' words but doesn't obey them. Question 19. In one of his most famous miracles, Jesus raised his friend Lazarus from the dead after he had been buried for 3 days in the town of Bethany near Jerusalem. Lazarus was the brother of Mary and Martha. Lazarus had actually been in the tomb for 4 days and not 3. Question 20. After Jesus' resurrection, the disciple Thomas earned the nickname Doubting Thomas. He denied knowing Jesus 3 times, and he initially refused to believe the other disciples' reports about seeing the risen Lord until Jesus appeared to him personally. It was Peter who denied knowing Jesus 3 times and not Thomas. While you're adding up your score, here's a verse from the parable of the wise and foolish builders. Everyone who hears these words of mine and doesn't do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. Here are some bonus questions for you to think about. Why do we hear the words of Jesus and not obey them? And is there anything that you think Jesus is saying to you, but you're resisting to obey? How did you get on? If you have enjoyed today's quiz, please like and share this video. There are more Bible quizzes here for you to try. Thank you for watching, and grace and peace to you all.